New DNA analysis of Pompeii victims reveals shocking truth about who they really were. New DNA evidence from corpses buried in Pompeii is rewriting the narratives about the people who lived there. The volcano erupted in 79 AD, releasing a 20 feet deep layer of ash and sediment that provided just the right conditions to capture dozens of bodies in their dying state. Archaeologists used these impressions to create replicas of the victims, and narratives were spun in books and Hollywood movies about those who died in more evocative positions. One of the more famous plaster casts was of an adult holding a child in what appeared to be a loving embrace. Known as the Two Maidens, it was previously assumed to have been a mother who died with her daughter in her arms. But the new genomic analysis found that the larger body really belonged to a man who was not genetically related to the child, who was actually a boy. The team said their analysis clearly debunked the stories that were long spun around these individuals. The researchers have a new theory: these were servants or slaves, or the children might have been the children of servants or slaves who also inhabited the house, according to Alyssa Mitnick of the Max Planck Institute. Researchers uncovered 4 Pompeian victims in a house that were all believed to be part of one family. They initially thought 2 of the bodies was a woman with a child on her hip, but the DNA testing revealed the adult was an unrelated male. But of course we don't really know, and we can't really say, who these individuals were and how they interacted with each other. Researchers focused on 14 casts undergoing restoration by extracting DNA from the fragmented skeletal remains that mixed with them. They hope to determine the sex, ancestry and genetic relationships between the victims. The team found that the ancient people were descended from ancestors who migrated to region from the eastern Mediterranean and North African populations that may have included Central and East Turkey, Sardinia, Lebanon and Italy. They were also able to partially reconstruct the appearance of the individuals, finding that one had black hair and dark skin, and 2 others had brown eyes. The researchers said they still need to conduct more genetic testing to fully understand Pompeii's past. Our findings have significant implications for the interpretation of archaeological data and the understanding of ancient societies, Mitnick said. We were able to disprove or challenge some of the previous narratives built upon how these individuals were kind of found in relation to each other. It opens up different interpretations for who these people might have been. There were several surprises in the House of the Golden Bracelet, the dwelling where the assumed mother and child were found. The adult wore a golden bracelet, for which the house was named, reinforcing the impression that the victim was a woman. Nearby, the bodies of another adult and child were thought to be the rest of their family. However, DNA evidence showed the 4 were male and not related to one another, clearly showing the story that was long spun around these individuals was wrong, Mitnick said. The study's co-author, David Caramelli of the Università di Firenze said, "This study illustrates how unreliable narratives based on limited evidence can be, often reflecting the worldview of the researchers at the time." Pompeii was covered in ash when Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, killing everyone in its path and burying the area. The town was forgotten until its rediscovery in the 1700s, when researchers found dozens of bodies that had been preserved from the soot and ash that covered the streets, buildings and people. Excavations of Pompeii began in 1748, and although Vesuvius's eruption completely destroyed the city, the pyroclastic deposits preserved the victims, buildings and art. The victims' soft tissue had decayed over the millennia, but their outlines remained intact and were recovered by filling the cavities with plaster, thus preserving their DNA. When the bodies were first discovered, researchers looked at their positioning to each other as well as the location, which led to assumptions about their relationships to one another. During the 1914 Pompeii excavations, 9 individuals were discovered in a home's garden, 2 of which were found close to each other in an embrace. At the time, archaeologists said there were 3 possibilities for their relationship: they were mother and daughter, 2 sisters or lovers. After scanning the skeletal remains, researchers have now determined that the victims were male and female, and one was between the ages of 14 and 19 while the other was 22. In another case discovered in 1974, 4 victims were found at a home and were assumed to be a genetically related family. The first body was that of a 4-year-old who was identified as male due to the bulge in the plaster near his genitalia.